The story starts with a young man named Pei. As he hurries to reach his office, we discover he is an ordinary individual who secured a typical role after finishing university. Though he considers his supervisor to be toxic, he reaches the railway station right as the doors prepare to shut, but he lunges forward and boards the carriage just in time. The clock shows it is nearly 9, but Pei sprints inside and successfully checks in at the final second. As the morning concludes, Pei ponders what to have for his midday meal. Yet he must weigh every available discount to save money because he is penniless. Following his lunch, he begins playing a video game to distress, but when he spots his manager, he rapidly toggles to a different tab. The employer stares from behind his back, but fails to detect anything unusual. Pei resumes his gaming while his boss perpetually attempts to trap him by sneaking up as 6 o'clock nears. Pei is the first to clock out, intent on getting home as quickly as possible, but his manager stops him. His boss requests a duplicate of his presentation, yet Pei points out that the deadline is still a week away. The employer insists on having it today, but Pei refuses and insults his boss. His superior threatens to fire him, but he remains unfazed, telling his boss to remember his severance pay or face a lawsuit. However, we discover this was merely his imagination, as he eventually agrees to work late to finish the project. We see Pei working until he is the only person left in the building, at which point the lights fail, and he receives a sudden notification. He sees that a friend has sent him a personality quiz to predict his future. Unfortunately, he accidentally knocks his phone into the trash can. As he goes to retrieve it, he sees a screen promising to disclose his destiny, and a voice suddenly announces that the fortune conversion system is being activated. His phone glows intensely as numerous talismans appear and begin rotating around him. He is lifted into the air and pulled into the bin, causing him to vanish. He is later awakened by his friend Yang, who warns him to get up for the dean's lecture because attendance will be checked. He is bewildered by his surroundings, and his roommates urge him to hurry as they depart. Pei soon realizes he is back in his old college dormitory and has returned to his freshman year. He wonders what is happening and considers going to class, but he recalls that the dean never actually monitored attendance. Instead, he remembers a different teacher who pretended to be friendly about attendance, but eventually failed everyone who missed class. He contemplates how to return to the future, but recognizes this as a chance to reshape his life to avoid a dead-end career. He is about to trip when his fortune conversion system suddenly engages. The system materializes and introduces itself by the name Richie. It explains that the system provides a startup fund to assist him in building wealth. He receives 50,000 to start, and he immediately envisions everything he can purchase. Richie further explains that the system will grant him funds at set intervals to manage a company, and based on the ratio of his profits to losses, he can generate personal income for himself. Pei becomes thrilled about the prospect of riches, and Richie calculates his conversion rate. But things do not go as he expected, because his loss ratio is significantly higher than his profit rate. Consequently, losing money is actually a more efficient way to profit personally. He celebrates his good fortune, believing it will be simpler to lose money than to gain it. Richie informs him that the next task is to register his business, leading him to consider which industry offers the best shortcuts. But Richie lists various regulations, so he realizes the business must be a legitimate enterprise. He asks for some time to reflect and searches for potential concepts. While browsing his phone, he decides the gaming industry is the ideal place to lose funds since success there is rare. He informs Richie of his choice, but accidentally gives the company a bizarre name. But he remains unconcerned, since he has no intention of being successful. Richie then warns him that revealing the system's existence to others will lead to a penalty. Richie offers well wishes, and a 14-day countdown begins. Pei starts to panic as he wonders how to create a game within just 2 weeks. And Yang returns to their room. Pei asks him if creating a game in 14 days is possible, and Yang says it is quite simple, revealing a platform packed with assets and templates that allow one to build a game without coding knowledge. We see Pei investigating the platform at the library, realizing it is low quality but perfect for creating a failure. He spends 20,000 on a driving simulator template and 15,000 more on background graphics, and he incorporates a few other basic elements, successfully exhausting his initial budget. He considers the gameplay and decides to make it the most tedious experience possible. He designs the game's route to be over 8 hours long, assuming players will despise it. He deems it perfect, titling the game The Lonely Desert Road, and he chooses to sell it for only 1 yuan to ensure minimal profit if anyone actually buys it. He sees that sales are non-existent, which makes him happy as he believes he will soon profit from the loss. Their neighbors visit the dorm to invite them to play games, but Pei declines because he missed sleep the night before. His roommates compete against the neighbors, but they lose the match because they are inexperienced. As the gaming continues, Pei relaxes on his bed while Yang asks if they are disturbing him, but he reveals that he is actually quite happy in this moment. We learn that in his previous life, he bought many games but never had time to play him due to his heavy workload. But he knows things will change now, because losing money will lead to his personal wealth, thinking he will never have to work again and can finally live his dream life. We are introduced to a content creator named Chow, who is known for reviewing terrible games on his channel, but he is currently struggling financially because he lacks a sponsor. He searches for a game for his next video and discovers The Lonely Desert Road. He reads the description, which claims the game will lead to personal reflection. Finding this intriguing, he starts playing but is shocked to find no narrative at all. He begins driving through the desert but gets distracted and crashes, resulting in a game over. But he uses his controller and spends several hours attempting to finish the drive. But he begins to feel sleepy and tries to pause, only to realize that pausing is not allowed, and he crashes once more, which makes him extremely frustrated. He becomes fixated on winning, viewing it as a test of his gaming proficiency. So he commits himself fully to the task, but still struggles to complete the course. And now highly annoyed, he considers quitting, but a prompt claims a reward awaits him at the finish. So his curiosity is piqued, and he continues playing for hours as he begins to reflect on his existence. Thinking he has reached a state of enlightenment, he eventually crosses the finish line, but the game merely mocks him for wasting 8 hours, causing him to call it a scam. We see Pei in class as Richie displays his statistics, showing 11 days remaining until the deadline. He believes he is about to become rich because his game has no downloads. At that moment, he overhears classmates discussing the game and realizes it has gone viral. He rushes home to investigate why people are purchasing it. He checks his computer and realizes the game is popular because Chow featured it on his channel. Pei watches the video where Chow tells viewers to avoid the game because it is the most boring title in history. Chow mentions that the game mocked him for wasting his time, but this makes the audience curious enough to buy it. Yang suggests they play it together, but Pei declines the offer, and he notes that the situation is terrible since he needs the game to fail. So he edits the description to encourage players to request refunds. But the players find the refund process too annoying and decide to let him keep their money. A few days later, we see Yang playing the game and wondering why it became a hit. He says it is awful, but people cannot seem to stop playing it. Pei remarks that it was never intended for play and falls into a state of despair. We move to a man named Li, who owns a major gaming corporation. His assistant tells him about the Desert Road game and its growing popularity. She notes the 1 yuan price tag and suggests it is not worth acquiring because of the low profit margin. But Li reveals that profit is not his focus, as his true goal is to control the entire gaming market, and he then fires her for failing to understand his long-term goals. Pei searches the web for advice on how to lose money, but he finds no useful information. The settlement date arrives, and he discovers his game earned 70,000 yuan, but due to the conversion rules, he only receives 700 yuan for himself. Richie offers congratulations on the successful game, but Pei is miserable because he wanted more personal money. Richie announces he will have 300,000 yuan for the next phase, revealing 30 days until the next deadline. But he is unsure how to spend the money on business expenses. Pei returns home, and Yang tries to cheer him up by inviting him to play a game. He agrees, So Yang tells the roommates he is joining them for a revenge match against the neighbors. Pei plays exceptionally well, but they still lose because Yang is a poor player. So Yon blames Yang for the defeat, but Yang tells Pei he should have carried the team better. Pei gets angry and calls Yang a hindrance, but then a new idea strikes him. That night, Pei looks at Yang and decides he is the perfect tool for losing money. Pei approaches him while he sleeps, but Yang wakes up and panics, waking the whole building. The next day, Pei continues to trail Yang until Yang finally asks what he wants. Pei says he wants Yang, leading to a misunderstanding that makes Yang try to flee. But Pei stops him and explains that he needs assistance developing a new game. But Yang is reluctant because he thinks they will fail, and he is about to leave. But Pei reveals he created the desert game and has 300,000 yuan. Yang is stunned to hear this and calls him a genius, agreeing to help by finding relevant books. Back at the dorm, Yang buys programming books, but Pei thinks they will fail because Yang is being impractical. Pei reminds him that coding isn't necessary with the online platform available. Yang wonders what to do with the books, but tries to read them anyway, and he falls asleep immediately, which makes Pei happy as it suggests the plan is working. The next day, Pei considers what game to make, knowing his company is famous for a driving title. So he needs something different so people won't download it based on his previous success. He thinks about using all his funds on a massive game and intentionally missing the launch date. But Richie warns him of a penalty, so he chooses a different path. He realizes mobile users are unfamiliar with him and decides to create a mobile title. He notes that card games are popular, but often fail because they copy the Three Kingdoms. So he decides to make the worst card game ever and tells Yang they need to hire artists. Yang suggests a more affordable route, but Pei is determined to spend every cent. So he tells Yang they will invest everything to make the best card game possible. While eating at a restaurant, Pei tells Yang to completely rewrite the character backstories, but Yang worries this will ruin the game. Yet Pei encourages him to innovate and use his imagination. Yang suggests turning characters into bizarre monsters, and Pei calls him a genius. He officially hires Yang with a salary of 3,000 yuan per month. Meanwhile, Li's new assistant reports that Three Kingdoms is losing players because rare cards are too hard to get. But Li explains that the difficulty is what makes it addictive and says they should leave it alone. The assistant agrees and mentions that Pei's company is planning to copy the theme, but Li claims he was the one who actually chose that theme and fires the assistant for questioning him. We return to Pei laughing at Yang's ideas, thinking the game will be a disaster. He checks his laptop to find an inexperienced artist to create unattractive designs, and he finds a promising candidate who he believes will help the project fail. The next day, Yang suggests using female character designs, but Pei rejects it to avoid success. So he claims he wants the characters to stay unique, and the gullible Yang believes him. While on a boat, Pei tells Yang that the concept art is the main priority. So Yang suggests hiring a famous artist, but Pei refuses because he does not want high quality. Yang thinks Pei wants him to have the spotlight, so he suggests focusing on gameplay instead of art. He offers to draw the art himself, but Pei insists on spending money on the rookie artist. They have a loud argument until the boat becomes unstable and flips over, as they notice their guide is drowning and save him. But the guide blames them for the accident. Pei tells Yang about the artist he found and shows him the chibi-style drawings. Pei convinces Yang that this artist will give them a unique and standing-out style. Yang asks for the contact info, and Pei reveals the artist's name is Jin. During a video call, Yang explains the plan and Pei asks Jin to design 50 characters, saying he can have full artistic freedom, but they don't want him to draw chibis. Jin is confused because chibis are his specialty, but Pei claims they see his hidden potential. Jin agrees and quotes a price of 2,000 yuan per character. Yang thinks the price is high, but Pei says it is too low and offers 3,500 yuan instead. Jin is shocked by the generosity, but Richie warns Pei about overpaying. So Pei tells Jin the price includes revision fees, which satisfies Richie's rules. Jin agrees, and the warning is withdrawn since the price now seems reasonable. But we learn he has no intention of actually asking for any changes. He tells Jin to follow his own vision and gives him 2 weeks to finish. After the call, Yang says he dislikes Jin's attitude, but Pei defends him as an introvert. Pei puts Yang in charge of art, while he focuses on the gameplay mechanics. But we learn he actually wants Yang to watch Jin, to ensure the art remains unappealing. He plans to make players hate the game by pricing it at 10 yuan, double the cost of 3 kingdoms. And he also decides to offer a cheap lifelong membership with unlimited draws to remove the fun of grinding. He looks for the worst possible game template and finds a failed project that tried to copy 3 kingdoms. He thinks it looks terrible and decides to purchase it for his game. We see Jin meeting with his team to discuss the new project, but they think the game will be bad because the character descriptions are nonsensical. They consider quitting, but Jin reminds them that the deposit has already been paid. He says they have complete freedom to make a name for themselves, so they decide to work hard. He suggests using his own unique style to make the characters shine, but his team is unfamiliar with the style, so he handles the designs while they add the final details. They put all their effort into the project and finish before the deadline. Back at the dorm, Yang informs Pei that Jin has delivered the artwork, but Pei doesn't bother looking at it and tells Yang to just add it to the game. He decides to name the project the Phantom General before going to sleep. The next day, Yang reports that the game has no bugs and asks about the release. Pei tells him to upload it as a generic card game since it is launch day. Yang thinks this is reverse psychology, but Pei just wants to lose money to get his personal payout. We see Yang's roommates attacking him because he lost another match and they call him useless. Pei arrives and pulls him away, then asks why the game's character designs are so high quality. Pei accuses him of plagiarism, but Yang explains that Jin created everything himself, and Pei is stunned because he thought Jin was a poor artist. Yang loves the art, but Pei is frustrated because the quality is far too high. But Yang wonders why he is complaining about a job well done. Pei claims he is worried he underpaid Jin, but he's actually upset the game might succeed. After Yang leaves, Pei reveals his regret over hiring Jin because the designs are brilliant, but he remembers that other beautiful games have failed in the past. Later, Yang tells Pei that the game has 100 downloads, but many negative reviews. Pei is happy about the bad reviews, but Yang suspects someone hired trolls to attack them. Pei pretends to be annoyed, but is actually thankful for the trolls, and Yang wants to reply to the critics, but Pei tells him to stay calm and ignore them, and Yang is impressed by Pei's composure and thinks he is a wonderful person. Sometime later, Yang is playing the desert game and speaks with Jin. He tells Jin the designs were amazing, and they discuss the project. As Jin's friends tell him, they were lucky to have such a generous client who paid them well. Jin checks the game's performance and wonders why there are no advertisements for it. He realizes the same company made the Desert Road game, which surprises his friends. They wonder why the Phantom General skipped the testing phase, and Jin starts playing and finds the gameplay simple, but he is amazed at how his art looks. He sees that special effects were added to his work and thinks it looks perfect. He obtains rare cards easily and continues playing until he notices something odd. So he calls Yang to ask why there is only one cheap item for sale in the shop. He asks if more items will be added, but Yang says Pei wants the players to have fun. Jin is shocked because the low price means the company won't make a profit, but Yang says profit is not the priority, and Jin thinks Pei is a saint. Yang starts crying and says Pei is broke because he spent all his money on the game. So Jin wants to help his client, but we see Yang was only pretending to be sad. Jin tells his team that Pei doesn't care about money, which impresses them, so they decide to support him because he is different from greedy developers. Pei thinks the game has failed and looks forward to his next system payout, but suddenly, Yang tells him the game has gone viral. Pei is confused about how it gained popularity without a marketing budget. He sees the flood of positive reviews and realizes people love the character designs, so he calls Jin to see if he promoted the game online. We learn Jin shared his work with other experts who were highly impressed, and Jin is happy the experts liked his art and wants to help the game succeed. Even though he is usually antisocial, Jin wants to support the kind-hearted Pei, so he tells everyone to play the game, causing it to go viral with great reviews. Pei wonders why he did this for free, but Jin simply wants him to be successful. He becomes sad that his personal profit will be lower but he thanks Jin anyway. Jin thinks Pei is happy with the success, while Yang still wonders about the tro. LLS. Lee's new assistant tells him that Pei's game is about to overtake 3 kingdoms. We discover that Lee was the one who hired the trolls, and Lee thinks Pei is trying to prove he is the superior developer. Feeling threatened, Lee decides it is time to try and buy Pei's company. Pei hides in the restroom and calls customer service to get his game removed from the featured list. The representative is confused by the request and needs to consult a manager, but Richie appears and tells Pei he is violating the rules, so Pei ends the call. Pei wanders around sadly until the settlement date arrives. Richie reveals that Pei made a net income of 500,000 yuan, so he is devastated that the game he wanted to fail became so profitable. And Richie says he only receives 5,000 yuan for himself due to the conversion rate. Richie sets the next deadline for 90 days away, and Pei is frustrated because he is struggling to lose money as the startup funds increase. But Richie says they won't increase the fund this time because he already has enough. At that moment, he receives another 1,000 yuan because his old games are still generating income. Lee tells his assistant that Pei has his full attention and he wants to acquire the business. Pei is watching soccer when Yang calls to say Lee wants to buy the company. So he is excited, but gets a warning that selling the company is against the rules. So he is forced to decline the offer, even though Lee is offering millions. And he is heartbroken but tells Yang to refuse anyway. Lee offers an investment instead, but Pei says he has plenty of money, asking Yang if they can invest in Lee's company instead. Lee is insulted by this and now considers Pei a true rival. In a restaurant, Yang mentions how profitable the games are, but Pei is in a bad mood. He won't talk about it, but he's actually worried about how to spend 6 million yuan in 3 months. Yang calls the waitress to pay the bill, and Pei realizes Yang is actually wealthier than he is. Yang is surprised by the high price and asks if the company can reimburse him, and Pei comes up with an idea. So he tells Yang to wait while he leaves. He asks Richie if he can count the meal as a company team-building expense, and Richie says yes, which makes Pei happy, though he's told he can't claim daily personal expenses. But Richie says it is prohibited. He returns and pays for the meal, while they watch news about new integrated technology. Yang thinks they should make a complex game in the future, but Pei says they lack the expertise. But this gives him the idea to hire more people and spend a fortune on their salaries. He admits he doesn't know how to manage a company and decides he needs an assistant. Moments later, he suggests going to an agency to find help while Yang hopes they become industry leaders. At Fiery Sky Studio, a producer named Joe sees that an employee named Lin is being laid off. He tells his staff she should stay, but Lin enters and resigns anyway. So he becomes sad, wondering why she is doing this. She wants to pursue her own dreams and says the company isn't the right fit, but she thanks him for looking after her. After she leaves, Joe calls a client and says Lin will eventually stop dreaming about making games. Pei and Yang meet a recruiter named Lawrence, who initially thinks they are wasting his time. He says his services are expensive, but Pei offers a salary of 400,000 yuan. So Lawrence immediately becomes very helpful. Pei asks for a female secretary, who is pleasant to look at to improve his mood. Lawrence suggests a girl named Lulu, who has an incredible resume, but Yang wonders why she left her last job. So Lawrence says she didn't want to work for her previous boss, but he thinks she'll work with Pei, and Pei immediately decides to hire her. As they leave, they see Lin watching news about Pei's game, but Pei calls the game Ash, which upsets Lin since she thinks it's a masterpiece. She mentions that it's a good game. He explains the design is poor, but Lin argues that he doesn't understand the game. Pei leaves the building, and Lawrence asks Lin if she needs a job. So she says she wants to work for the creator of Phantom General. He tells her that Pei is the owner, so she runs after him but misses her chance. And she realizes she just missed her dream job. Pei meets Lulu at a cafe for an interview, and she's already impressed by his company. Thinking he's a capable young man, she thinks she's the perfect candidate and starts listing her accomplishments. But Pei reminds her that he is the one conducting the interview. So he says he's satisfied with her, but tells her only to give advice when he specifically asks for it. She agrees and is ready to start, but is surprised to find out there is no office yet. So they visit a tower to rent space and they are shown around. Pei asks if it's the city's most expensive building, and she confirms this. So he tells the agent he wants the whole floor, and the agent is excited, calling him a generous person. Lulu notes the massive size and the 360,000 yuan monthly rent, but the agent offers a discount for the whole floor, saying he won't find a better deal in the city. But Pei tells him it's too cheap, which surprises the agent. But Pei tells him that life is hard, so he shouldn't lower his price to please customers. We learn Pei is actually just trying to burn through the profits from his successful games. The agent is thrilled, and Pei feels his move to waste money is brilliant. Moments later, Lulu says the lease is done and they need to buy office supplies. She shows him a list of items, but Pei thinks the items she selected are too cheap, saying they need to promote a good environment for the team. She asks about the budget, and he says he wants to spend 2 million, but Richie makes him lower it to 800,000 instead. Lulu thinks it's plenty, and he tells her to buy the absolute best equipment, saying they need to give employees the best experience. But she asks about his own office, so he tells her to spare no cost, and she decides to rent a private unit for him and gives him the access card. He likes the idea because he can stay there if he works late, and Richie thinks it is reasonable, so he starts relaxing there. Lulu shows him the hiring policy, but he thinks it's too strict, telling her to change it because he wants to hire the most useless people. But she warns they might end up hiring people who can't make games at all, and he realizes the plan is flawed because he still needs a finished product. So he tells her he'll pick the staff himself, but she suggests he upgrade his look, and he finds he can claim expensive suits as a business meeting expense. So he decides to buy the most expensive suits he can find, and he feels he's successfully losing money at this rate. He decides to hire another talentless person, and he looks for a lazy student to hire. He finds a gaming addict named Belle who was kicked out of school for bad grades. Pei thinks a veteran gamer is a good choice, so he approaches Belle about being a game designer, and Belle thinks he's a scammer, so he tells Pei to go away. But Pei gives him a large cash advance, which makes him interested. Pei tells Belle he can play games on the company's powerful computers, but Belle admits he has no experience making games, so Pei says he trusts his gaming knowledge and asks him to join. Belle accepts and is excited to finally be a developer. The next day, Pei meets a man named Hong who is nervous about his interview, so Pei approaches him to ask if he's applying. Pei pretends to be another candidate and asks why Hong is late, so he says he's unhappy at his current job and is applying during his break. The elevator opens and his boss Lu appears, who says Ji won't get the job because the requirements are too high. He enters the elevator with Pei and they talk about Lu, so Belle reveals he's a lead designer, and Hong thinks he won't get the job. But they reach the office and the staff greets Pei, causing Belle to be surprised, and he starts interviewing Hong, revealing he is the CEO. He tells Hong that he's exactly who they need, asking about his expected salary, so he says 2,000 yuan should be enough. But Pei insists on doubling it because the cost of living is high, explaining that 2,000 isn't enough for his expenses. So Pei offers double the amount, and he is overjoyed and promises to sacrifice everything for the firm. Later, Lulu says a girl named Lin wants to see him, and we see it is Lin, who asks if his goal is to make money, but he denies this, so she thinks he is doing it for passion, and he asks Lulu about her, so she says Lin was a poor employee before, but this makes Pei immediately hire her. In the dorm, roommates ask Yang where Pei has been lately, because they haven't seen him in days. They ask if he's coming back, and Yang says he's working and living outside. We see Hong working at the office, but he wonders why the staff is just getting paid to play video games. Everyone questions Pei's goals, so Lin explains that Pei wants them to find flaws in existing games. Hong sees Belle has reached the top level, and he thinks this is what Pei wants, but Lin thinks Pei is trying to make them feel guilty, so they work harder later. Everyone wonders where Pei is because he's never in the office, and we see him at home, realizing it will be hard to control his staff. He's worried the next game won't fail, but an action movie gives him an idea. The bell rings and staff are told to go home, but they wonder why they haven't done any real work. At that moment, Pei appears and says he's been planning the future. He tells them they'll work on a first-person shooter. So, their goal is to lead the industry. Everyone doubts themselves, but he says he rejected experts to pick them for their creativity. He tells them they are the future of the industry, saying Hong is a hidden gem, and Bell is a master of gaming. Pei claims their team is unbeatable, saying he'll give general directions, but leave the rest to Hong and Bell. They go to a meeting where Pei gives the instructions, saying the game needs easy controls and a very long story. He adds that weapons must look cool, so players will buy them, and he ends the meeting thinking his demands will ruin the game. But Hong thinks the players will complain about simple controls, and the story won't be fun if it is too long. He adds that their reputation will suffer for selling items, but Pei tells Hong to be confident and overcome the problems. Pei makes Hong the lead designer, and Bell the moderator, saying they need a draft in 1 week. After the meeting, Pei celebrates, and he sees Bell playing a game, wishing him well. We learn Bell is the only one allowed to work late, but Hong thanks Bell for helping him hide, saying he wants to do his best for the company, so he works overtime. They discuss the project, thinking Pei achieved great results with minimal help, thinking they should follow his example. Bell suggests spending only on key features, and they enter Bell's imagination as he explains the oil rig setting. Hong asks about enemies, and a mummy suddenly attacks them, so Bell saves him, and the mummy falls. Countless mummies appear as Bell explains the simple design. Bell shoots one, making it burn, but they realize they're surrounded and run. As Bell says, they can just make mummies easy to kill, but he runs out of ammo, so they retreat. They climb to a safe spot to discuss the story. Bell thinks they need an important side character, and a girl appears, so Hong tries to talk to her, but Bell says she can't speak to save on costs. He explains she LL give quests through movement, and she leads Hong to a corner where a mummy is, so he runs and Bell knocks it down. But mummies swarm, so the girl gives Hong a rifle, and he uses it to defend himself. Bell arrives in a helicopter to save them, saying players need a bond with characters. They return to reality, as Hong calls Bell a genius, but he thinks Pei is smarter, thinking Pei didn't say much, because he wanted them to have fun. Hong agrees, and they call Pei a visionary. They wonder what he meant by cool weapons, and they think he wants a legendary weapon. They work all night, and the next day Hong tells Bell the game will be amazing, saying he'll make it perfect. But Yang arrives, and is surprised to see Hong working late. That evening, Hong sneaks back into the office, but Bell says there's no need to rush, so he doesn't need to do this every day. But he explains Pei didn't give them much time to test, so he needs to work beyond the schedule. He tells Bell the proposal is done, and he shows it to Bell, but Bell's advice is gibberish, and Hong has no idea what he's saying. He gives Hong suggestions, but Yang is watching them, and he thinks about reporting them to Pei. The next day, Pei is in class and gets a message from Hong, saying the framework is finished, but he's shocked they're working so fast, wondering why they aren't being lazy. Yang tells him Hong has been working overtime in secret, and Pei thinks this is a problem, so he thinks about confronting Hong. But Yang says Hong was just playing games during that time, so Pei changes his mind, realizing he wasn't being productive. He looks at the proposal and tells Hong he did a great job, and Pei tells Yang to ignore the behavior, saying it's not wrong because developers need to research by playing. Back at the office, Hong says the proposal was approved, so they celebrate and start working immediately. We see Pei in the bath, realizing his old games are still making money, so he becomes frustrated, wondering how to spend it. Yang visits and says everyone is staying late to play because Hong's behavior inspired them. Yang thinks Pei shouldn't allow it, but he decides to spend money on them, telling Yang they are sacrificing their health, so they must be paid. Yang thinks Pei is amazing, but Pei says he's just giving what they deserve, and he thinks they need better treatment, so he gets an idea. The next day, Hong gives Pei the project report, but he realizes it's too long to read, so he tells Hong to handle everything. But Hong asks for a game title, and he hears staff ordering food, so he tells Hong to stop them. We see Pei prepared food for everyone, and Yang says Pei will provide free meals now. Lulu says the gym is being renovated, but they hired trainers, so everyone is excited. Hong tells Lin he doesn't understand Pei's kindness, but she thinks it's to boost efficiency, and Hong thinks they should work harder to repay him. They suddenly see they were paid for overtime. Lin talks to Pei, who says the rules have changed, saying everyone is allowed to work overtime now. He says they'll be paid for it, but she refuses the payment, so he asks why. She says she doesn't want it, but he says she deserves it, telling her not to turn him down, and she becomes flustered and accepts. Everyone asks if she refused, but she says she couldn't, and they start crying, lucky to have an incredible boss. Bell thinks Pei didn't test the game because he trusts them, so they are determined to succeed. Pei wonders how to spend the money, and he shows Bell the materials they'll buy. Asking for his opinion, we learn they'll spend $670,000 on the game, and Bell thinks it's reasonable, saying it's enough for what they need. But Pei says don't cut costs, reminding him of his dream for a perfect game, and he realizes they need to spend more. Pei tells him to double the budget, and Sug is buying a 500,000 yuan server. Pei thinks it's a great idea and tells Bell to focus on the game, saying they'll buy the server after release. Meanwhile, Lee tells Joe to poach Pei's staff, thinking the company will collapse without them. Lee's assistant says the staff is pathetic, but he wants to destroy Pei's company, so he proceeds with the plan. We see Bell watching shooter videos, but Hong interrupts for document approvals. They ask Bell questions about the project, and he tries to answer them, but he gets overwhelmed, thinking he isn't a lead developer. But Hong decides to help him, ordering everyone to do their part, but they are interrupted by phone calls. A month later, Pei is in class but Yang is gone, so Pei wonders where he is. He gets a call from Yang saying Fiery Sky is poaching staff, and he can't believe it, so he rushes to the office, and he realizes it's empty, thinking everyone abandoned him, so he falls into despair, wondering how to finish the game, but he sees Hong and realizes they never left. Yang asks what happened, so they reveal Fiery Sky tried to hire them, but they stayed because they are happy at Pei's company, knowing they are treated well. Yang says Fiery Sky is an industry legend, but Lin thinks Pei is better, and everyone agrees. Hong reveals they were testing the game in another room, and the office is messy because they finished the project. Pei can't believe the game is done, and they show him Project Oil Rig, and he realizes it has great potential. Hong says they need a month to polish it, but Pei wants to stop them, thinking a team-building trip is a good waste of time, so he tells them about the plan. But Lulu interrupts, and Lee's assistant appears. Everyone recognizes him, and Hong warns Pei, but he greets Pei and says he learned about Pei's greatness. He says he wants to join Pei's company, so Pei is confused since he was working for Lee, but he says Lee is trying to bring Pei down. He thinks Lee might help him fail, but he sees everyone is upset, so he rejects Lee's assistant. We see everyone in the gym, and they talk about the trip, wondering where they're going. Lin wants to visit Fiery Sky Studio because she wants them to meet Pei, thinking he is the real deal, but he overhears this and grants the wish, saying they'll visit her old boss, and the trip has a 450,000 yuan budget, but we learn he's doing it to demoralize the team, knowing his company can't match Fiery Sky. Everyone eats as Pei tells them about the plan, saying the company pays for everything, but he realizes they aren't in a luxury hotel, and he asks Lulu about this, so she says Lin told her the budget was only 150,000, so he realizes Lin misheard him, but he sticks with it, thinking Richie might stop him if he increases it. He tells Yang to ask about past mistakes at Fiery Sky, and Yang agrees. We see Joe in his office, as his assistant says Pei's group arrived. He thinks Pei is a fool and doesn't want to meet him, but his assistant disagrees, reminding Joe that Pei made successful games, so Joe lets them in. She shows them around, and they are amazed by the facilities, as Pei realizes it costs millions to build. Pei meets Joe, and they greet each other, but Joe sees Pei's expensive suit, realizing he looks capable, so Joe sees him as a threat, but Pei is only thinking about wasting money, thinking he should invite Joe to a fancy dinner. Joe offers a tour so Pei won't get lost, and Joe starts boasting about the facilities, telling Pei to learn from them. He offers Pei a limited doll and checks his collection, but Pei's team arrives and starts insulting the studio, thinking Pei's company is better, but they realize Joe is listening, and he sees Lin has joined Pei. He calls his staff, and they have a meeting, as Yang asks Joe if he pays overtime, but he denies it, and they are happy to hear this, as Yang realizes he's not a good boss. His assistant introduces Pei's team, and she starts bragging about their games, saying Lin was a bad employee, so she didn't deserve to stay. But Pei says she is now his director, and he orders her to speak about their company, so she says Pei isn't like other developers, saying the desert game went viral for a reason. She explains it changed people's lives, but Joe notes she isn't making sense, and Pei totally agrees. She adds that Phantom General is successful for being cheap. Joe admits she has a point, and she calls Pei a genius. Joe gives a speech saying their games are classics, and he shows the new game, Bullet Mark. His assistant stops him, saying they shouldn't tell Pei's team, but he insists, thinking they are no threat. He tells them about the game, and Pei wants his team to listen, so they will get demoralized. We learn it's an FPS, and Joe says weapons will look realistic. He knows players want to grind for skills, so he decided to make it free to play, but mentions the drop rate is low, so players will buy items. Hong realizes Bullet Mark is brilliant, thinking Project Oil Rig is nothing compared to it, so he falls into despair. And Joe knows he demonstrated superiority, so he looks down on Pei's team. But Hong wonders why Pei looks confident, thinking he must have a plan. But we learn he's actually rooting for Bullet Mark, hoping it will crush his game. Pei's team returns to the office, where Lulu says Pei is giving them vacation leave. Hong says he learned a lot on the trip, saying Bullet Mark launches on the same date. He knows their quality isn't as good, and they don't want Joe to succeed since he's a bad boss. Hong asks everyone not to take the vacation because he wants to improve their game, and they think Pei arranged the trip to show them the competition. They love the company and want Pei to succeed, so they decide to surpass Bullet Mark. We see Joe calling Lee, who is angry that Joe showed them the game, so he explains it was to crush their morale, thinking they aren't a threat. But Lee tells him not to underestimate Pei, saying he is dangerous, so Joe promises to deal with him. We return to the office where everyone works on the game. Belle gives suggestions on the gameplay, but a coworker says the game is already better than most, so Lin says they shouldn't follow trends because Pei is a trailblazer. Lulu gets a call from Pei, who says he'll be busy for the week, and she promises to handle everything. Lin thinks he's busy promoting the game, and Hong says they are done, so they need to test it. Belle does it and has a great experience, thinking the game is perfect. Meanwhile, Pei finished his exams, and Richie gives him a report, saying the deadline is 25 days away, and he still has 361,000 yuan. He knows he's doing well, and wants to waste the money so he can make a fortune. So he calls Lulu to arrange another trip, and he promises everyone will have fun, saying they'll spend all the remaining money on the event. We see the team in a private cinema, and they watch a movie together, but it cuts to a recording, and Pei realizes it's a surprise. They tell him Project Oil Rig is done, and they want to launch it right away. But Pei panics, because it might do well if it launches now. So he tells everyone they shouldn't release it yet. But Richie warns him he can't delay without reason. So he says they should celebrate first, and they decide to have a party, as Pei asks Lulu about the vacation days. But Yang says they decided to work instead, so they finished early. We see Belle is already drunk and singing, as everyone enjoys the party, hoping the game is a hit. Lin notes everyone is valued, and she thinks Pei is an excellent leader, but she wonders why he looks worried, thinking he's pondering the future. But we learn he's just thinking about losing money, and Belle tells everyone he was a loser before Pei, so he thanks Pei for changing his life, and everyone starts crying and getting drunk. The next day, they return to the office, but they realize they haven't published it yet, so they have to launch it immediately. Lin checks the numbers and realizes it's not performing well because Bullet Mark launched on the same date, but they think it will improve with marketing. But they realize Pei didn't spend money on ads, so they wonder if he knows what he's doing. But Belle tells them not to doubt Pei, reminding them his other games did well. Lin believes he's testing their endurance under pressure, and Hong thinks they need to do something, so they ask Lulu for a budget for patches. Belle says they need testers for data to optimize the experience, but they don't have enough players, so he suggests paying testers for feedback. But Lulu says Pei didn't allocate a budget, so they decide to pay the testers themselves. Lin says she knows a professional gamer named Cheng, and Belle recognizes him as an industry legend. She says she sent him a link to the game, hoping he promotes it. We see King about to download the game, thinking it must be terrible, and he can't believe the weapon costs 888 yuan, saying it's too expensive, but he tries it anyway. He enters the game, wondering what to do, because there was no introduction. He thinks the graphics are bad, and he sees a girl who needs help to escape, but a mummy attacks her, so he shoots it. He realizes he needs to protect her to win, and he sees more monsters approaching, but she gives him an assault rifle, so he shoots them down, noting the controls are smooth, thinking beginners won't struggle. He follows the girl who says she's hungry, so he gives her candy, and she starts opening a door, but a swarm of mummies appear, and he tries to take them down, but he runs out of ammo and retreats. But a mummy catches them and overpowers him. It starts eating him, but the girl heals him. The mummy gets back up, but he takes it down, and we see King at the office. As Lin says he begged to come there, he reveals he finished the story mode, and he thinks the game is amazing, saying he loves everything about it. He thinks Bullet Mark is overrated, thinking it's nothing compared to Project Oil Rig. They thank him, and Lin offers him the legendary weapon, but he says he already bought it. He mentions it looks cool, but the name is boring, saying they should call it the Mega Holy Gun, but they think that sounds ridiculous. He asks why there's only one item in the shop, so they say it was Pei's idea to sell a legendary weapon, but they thought about lower-class weapons, and Pei didn't mention them, so the team made them free. Lin offers to pay him for testing, but he refuses, wanting the game to succeed, so he's going to cover it in his stream. We see Pei in class, and Yang says the game isn't doing well, so he should return to the office after the exam. He thinks everyone is depressed because it failed, thinking he needs to cheer them up, but he's actually happy he'll make a fortune. But Yang says the game is gaining traction, saying it could go viral, so he becomes worried that it's successful again. Pei returns and notes everyone is on edge, thinking Yang lied to him, but they surround him, saying it went viral, and they congratulate him on the success. He returns to his office, wondering why it didn't fail, thinking his staff advertised it in secret. Hong gives him an analysis, explaining why it was successful, so he reads it, realizing King promoted it, saying the controls are friendly, and the story is great. But Pei thinks this doesn't make sense, because he came up with those concepts to make players hate it, so he realizes he is the reason it didn't fail. The team thinks he's brilliant for the game's direction, and his ideas made the game stand out. Pei walks past them looking depressed, but they think he's just being cool and collected. We see Pei on the terrace, and we learn he read the comments, realizing they all loved the game. He reveals he made 400,000 from the weapon alone, and he knows the game is still gaining traction, so he could make millions before the deadline. He starts to feel depressed, knowing he can't spend it all, but Lin tells him to calm down, saying he can talk to her, but he knows she won't understand. She thinks he feels bad about beating Bullet Mark, and he can't handle the success, so she tells him to take a break, saying the team will support him. Hearing this, he realizes he can get others to spend money for him, thinking Richie is playing a game with him, and he's determined to come out on top. Pei realizes Project Oil Rig is making more money than the others, so he thinks about spending everything before the deadline. He notes he has over $1 million in his account, and he tries to find a solution. Richie appears, and Pei says he wants to update the games, so he needs to spend money on it. But Richie says the rules require microtransactions for updates, so he changes his mind and considers a bonus for the team. But Richie says that is too generous, so he thinks about a claiming quota instead, and Richie allows it, asking for the amount. But he says 20,000 per month, and Richie denies it because the amount is too high. That evening, everyone leaves the office, but Lulu realizes Pei is still inside, and he tells her he's not finished with his tasks. She offers to help, saying she doesn't mind working late, so he asks her if she knows how to make excuses, because he wants to carry out demands under the company name. She thinks he's doing something illegal, but he explains he wants to use profit for employee benefits, so she decides to help him, and he explains he wanted to share profit with the staff, but someone set a limit for him. He asks for advice, and she suggests a 50% bonus, saying it sounds reasonable. He asks about a special claiming system, so she says 3,500 per month is reasonable, but he wants to give them more, so she suggests a 1,000 yuan shopping cart, and he thinks she's brilliant and the best member of the team. The next day, Lulu gives him the budget report, and he thinks he outsmarted the system. Richie examines it and says it doesn't break the rules, but he mentions being thrifty is a virtue. Pei goes out with the team and tells them they can each claim 3,500, saying he'll even give them gift cards. They start shopping, and Pei notes they have 2 hours left, so they need to spend fast. He points them to the flagship store of the Shanhua company, and they check it out, finding interesting gadgets. Hong considers a laptop, but mentions the company computers are better, so he thinks he doesn't need it. But Pei tells him it offers convenience for working anywhere. Pei approaches Ming, who is checking a gaming phone, but he thinks it's too expensive, so Pei reminds him the company will pay for it, telling him he'll need it for mobile games. Bell looks at equipment and says he spent all his money, so Pei tells him he's doing great. Pei asks Lin what she wants to buy, but Yang runs past, and Pei asks why he's only taking phone cases, so he says he wants to keep changing his phone's look, thinking it will make him look cool. But Pei reprimands him, telling him to spend more. He takes all the cases in the store and gives them to Yang, telling him to buy them all. As Lin observes, thinking Pei is a great person. Moments later, Lulu says everyone hit the target, and he thinks about all the money they spent, realizing it's not enough. So he asks if he can buy what he wants, and she says he can buy items to improve work efficiency. He enters a store saying he wants a watch, but he realizes he can't buy the most expensive one, and he asks Richie why he can't spend more than 40,000. So Richie says his net worth is 40,000. So he can't go higher. Pei goes on a shopping spree, but the staff still thinks he's thrifty for buying work items, and none are overpriced. He realizes he has a few seconds left, but still needs to spend money and sees perfume. But Richie says he can't buy it since it isn't business related, but he explains he's buying it for a client, and he realizes Lin hasn't bought anything yet, so he buys it for her, making her flustered. Richie examines her and realizes her net worth is 10 billion because she is the heiress of the Shenhua group. So he allows it, and Pei spends all the money. The system gives him a report, and he realizes he lost 20,000 yuan. So he celebrates, knowing he defeated the system. He tells everyone about an announcement tomorrow, and Lin thanks him for the gift, but he wonders why Richie allowed it. The next day, everyone gathers at the office, and Pei gives awards to Hong and Bell, but he announces Hong no longer needs to work because he's being replaced by Ming. So everyone is confused. We learn he wants to eliminate talented staff so games fail, but he tells Hong he'll receive 1,000,000 yuan so he can start his own business, and he is overjoyed to hear this. Pei approaches Bell, knowing he just wants to play. So Pei gives him unlimited paid holidays, but he wants to stay in the office. So Pei tells him to expand his horizons, and he reluctantly accepts. Pei concludes the ceremony and tells them they'll work on another project. Hong is leaving when Lulu approaches him, telling him the money will be transferred after he has an idea. He reveals he always wanted to work in games, and he thinks Pei is letting him go for a bigger plan. He sees Lin and Ming and tells THM to update the game, but Ming says they won't be updating previous games because Pei wants to focus on the next project. Hong can't believe it, knowing they'd make more profit, and Ming thinks he isn't ready to lead a project, but Lin believes in Pei's control. Pei checks the system and sees he has 1,000,000 yuan, and the next deadline is 90 days away. He plans to take it easy, thinking 90 days is enough to make a bad game, but he thinks about controlling the pace because he doesn't want them to finish early, thinking they might update old games if they have time. He recalls he must add microtransactions if they are updated, and he doesn't want them to be profitable again. He thinks about how to ruin the project, thinking he made a mistake trusting talented staff, so he decides not to give Ming freedom. Pei has a meeting with Ming and Lin, as he thinks about handling it himself to make it bad. He explains he wants to reflect the current state of the industry, saying it should show players they shouldn't waste time gaming. He mentions a 2D character for the storytelling, but he wants it to be as boring as possible, thinking nobody will be interested in game producer. Ming wonders if they need 2D designs, but Pei is against this because he wants to waste money, so he wants the game to look unique. He shows them what the game should look like. As he explains, the player is a producer making choices. Each decision leads to a different ending, and choices are complicated, so they must think carefully because decisions affect the project's success. There's a sudden blackout, so everyone wonders what's happening. As Pei explains, sudden events can be added to the game. Lin thinks players will get bored without interaction, and Pei admits she has a point, so he gives them the ability to communicate. He explains they will add narrations, and we see them gossiping about the player. Ming finds it interesting, and Pei plans to humiliate the player with narration. Pei and Yang prepare for winter break, and Yang asks if he can stay in the unit. Pei grants it, but asks why he isn't going home, so he says everyone is still working, but Pei tells him to enjoy his break since he's a student. We cut to Ming as he tries to record voices, but he's doing a terrible job, and the technician says it's been 3 hours without progress. Ming starts to lose hope, but Lin tells him Pei believes in him. She shows him the script, saying the game is ruined if the player follows the narration because it leads to choosing profit, so she thinks it isn't meant to be taken seriously, thinking Pei wants to expose greed in the industry. So Ming is determined to make it successful, and they start making progress, but the technician asks what happens if they don't follow it, so they say it leads to a bad ending, saying the industry is cruel, but their company is successful because of Pei. After recording, they walk home. As Lin mentions Pei's company changed her life, Ming asks about Fiery Sky, and she recalls Joe ordered them to copy games, thinking he is nothing compared to Pei. She wants the public to learn about bad practices, so she's looking forward to the release. After the holidays, Bell returns, and Pei realizes he is in bad shape. So Pei wonders what happened, thinking he enjoyed his vacation. He begs to work again, feeling empty without passion. So Pei allows him to work again, and as he touches the mouse, he feels better. Ming asks him to help with the project, but he recalls Pei ordered him not to, so he tells Ming he won't interfere. That evening, Hong visits and drinks with Bell. He explains he can't think of a business idea and misses working for the company. He wonders if Pei decided to update the game, and Bell denies it, but mentions he found glitches, and they decide to fix the game together. The next day, everyone hears rumors about updates, and they realize Phantom General has been optimized, so players are excited to support the game, and the team can't believe thousands share this idea. Pei returns, and Lin tells him what's happening, but he tells her to ignore the players, saying the team won't update the game, but she tells him it's being optimized, so he orders her to find the people responsible. After some time, we see Jin entering, and Lulu recognizes him as the artist. He shows her a drive for Yang, containing new characters for the game. She wonders if Pei asked for it, but he says it's free and is about to leave. But she thinks he optimized the game, so she stops him and leads him to Pei. But he says he isn't good with people. But she opens the door and tells Pei he's there. He tells Jin he doesn't plan to update the game, but Jin says the company has a big name now, so players have high expectations. He realizes he needs a new strategy since he has a reputation, so people will buy his games regardless. He thinks he needs to make everyone hate the company, and he tells Jin to forget that game because he needs help with the next project. Moments later, Ming shows Pei the game, and Pei likes it, calling Ming a genius. He mentions they'll publish it on April Fool's Day, and he gives Ming a marketing plan for Lin, but he's confused because he thought Pei hated marketing. Lin goes through it and wonders about the cost, thinking the script is terrible. She recalls Chow covered the desert game, and Ming finds it strange since Pei never hired influencers before. We see Chow creating content, but we learn his channel isn't doing well, and he's running out of games. He gets a message from Lin with an offer, and he gets excited thinking about charging $1,500, but thinks his price is too high. She calls and says they need help promoting the game, saying they'll pay 50,000 yuan. He can't believe it, asking about the task, but she gives him a SC rip to recommend it. He doesn't like it since he roasts games, and is about to decline, but she raises the price to 20,000, so he asks to play it first, but she says they will only give 10 seconds of footage, and that is all he gets. He knows his reputation will be ruined if he accepts, so he tells her to find someone else, but she says they'll pay 50,000, and this blows his mind, so he accepts. He checks the footage, thinking it's trash, so he immediately regrets it, but he receives the 50,000 from Pei. He recognizes the company from the desert game, thinking Pei hired him for revenge because he roasted them. He knows he'll lose his integrity, but he needs the money, so he swallows his pride. Lin returns and sees Hong and Bell working late, realizing they are optimizing the old games. But Bell asks her not to tell Pei, and she promises to keep the secret. She says the new game will be published tomorrow, thinking it will do well, but afraid players will find it boring. So Bell says it's natural to feel that way, because they already know the ending. He thinks players will enjoy it, but isn't sure of profit because it's ahead of its time, but he admires Pei for taking the risk. On April Fool's, Chow releases the ad, and he praises the game as amazing. He tells everyone to buy it, and the video ends with Pei calling players idiots. The team doesn't like it, but Pei thinks it's brilliant, and Lulu says people aren't happy. They know the company paid Chow, thinking they ruined his reputation, so they plan to boycott the game, but Pei notes it's all going according to plan. Yang mentions few people downloaded the game because everyone hates the company, and Ming blames himself for failing Pei. Hong appears with an editor named Hun, and he explains she will interview everyone, thinking this is a chance to save their reputation. But during her show, we see she exaggerated, making Pei look like a terrible boss, and Lin sees this and becomes upset. We learn Hun's company works with Lee, and her boss ordered her to make Pei an enemy. But later, Lin confronts Hun, telling her to stop reporting fake news, and they start to argue. But Hun's boss appears and reprimands her, telling her to stop because he doesn't want to offend the Shenhua group. So Lin calms down and tells him to deal with it, and she walks away as he explains Lee is nothing compared to her because she is the heiress of the Shenhua group. We see Hun interviewing Pei, and she asks why he accepted, so he tells her it's because of Lin, since she was begging him to do it. But Hun thinks they are a couple, thinking they make a great pair, and she begins recording. But Pei says he only has time for one more question. She asks why he makes games, so he tells her the truth about wanting to lose money, but he knows nobody will believe him. We see Chow thinking about the reaction, knowing everyone hates him as a coward, so he realizes he messed up his reputation. He wants to see how bad the game is, so he decides to buy it, realizing it costs 28 yuan, and he starts the game, planning to tell everyone it's bad. The narrator tells him to reach the top, but he must start with a computer, and he thinks the story is great because he relates to it. Chow chooses an MMORPG, but an NPC says he'll fail, and he recalls when he started his channel. But everyone doubted him. He becomes addicted, but gets a bad ending because he followed the instructions, and NPCs call him an idiot for being greedy. He tries again and does things differently, but an NPC mocks him for losing money, so he still ends up failing. He realizes he has a lot in common with the character because people also doubted him, but he never gave up and eventually gained traction. It looks like he reached a good ending, but an NPC says hard work doesn't guarantee success, and he fails for no reason. And he thinks about how his channel isn't doing well, and he starts crying, thinking he was wrong about Pei because the game is a masterpiece. We return to Pei as he watches the news, realizing Hun described him as a legend, and she starts praising the company. As she reveals, the staff is happy to have him. She mentions he makes excellent games regardless of cost, and Ming tells him it went viral because of Chow. Pei watches the video, as Chow mentions the performance on April Fools, but says the people didn't like it. He explains everyone has been copying videos for attention, and he created the ad to expose what's wrong with shorts. He calls Game Producer a masterpiece because it resonates with the soul and exposes the gaming industry. But he explains players hate it because of the ad, saying it was never meant to be taken seriously. Chow encourages everyone to play, saying he related to the character personally because there are similarities between them. He explains all artists feel lonely because it's easy to be misunderstood, and he starts crying as he mentions Pei never cared about the profit and created the game to wake everyone up. Pei becomes upset realizing Chow ruined the plan, but the team celebrates the success. Pei falls into despair, fighting the world alone, and he needs someone to help him fail. He suddenly gets a call from Lee, and he realizes Lee hates him, so he thinks he finally found an ally. Lee accuses him of buying the media, and he believes Pei is taunting him, so he tells Pei he won't go easy on him. Pei thinks Lee might help him, but the system interrupts as Richie appears, telling him he has a special mission.